गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. We are in Jnaneshwari, chapter 18, OV number 286, but I think around 283 or 282 we just did it in a hurry because we wanted to complete it. But so we'll just look at it again, the last from verse 280 to 285. And what was told here was, we are looking at the 13th verse. पंचायतानि महाबाहो कारणानि निबोध मे सांख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानि सिद्धये सर्वकर्मणाम्. So here it was told that there are that O Arjuna, and what is he called? He is called Mahabahu. Mahabahu, the strong armed. So those who are strong get noticed very easily. So Mahabahu. So what is that? Panchayatani Mahabahu Karanani Nibodhame. There are 5 factors which are the cause for karma, and that the Lord is explaining to Arjuna, and he says in the 281st OV, these 5 causes have become well known in the world as they have been proclaimed by the beating of a drum. It is therefore meet that they should fall on your ears as they will benefit you. And when we listen to those 5 causes, we will recognize that how the karma comes about. We have explained to you from beginning till now, but there are n number of ways to keep explaining it, and this is yet another one. And here he says, benefit you as you have the philosopher's stone as myself. Why should I put you to the trouble of finding someone else to talk about it? Oh, where do we get answers? Where do we get answers? I'm asking. Where do we get answers from to our questions?
From gurus, from scriptures.
Okay. Anyone else?
From myself.
One by one?
From gurus.
From gurus?
Scriptures,
Someone?
from scriptures,
From
as well as within ourselves.
Yes, the first place, the first and the only place to get an answer is from within. Outside you get only reply, but that reply you have to make it into an answer within. When you discover that principle by your own experience, by your own sadhana, by your own observation, by your own assessment, by your own purity, by your own intuitiveness about anything in this world. And when we don't want to take responsibility, then we keep asking the questions. And what is within us, from where the answer comes? The self. And who is this self? It's none other than the Paramatma. And that is the philosopher's stone. That is where everything gets turned into divine. And that is what Krishna Bhagavan is saying. You don't have to run around the bush to find an answer from other people. What are those 5? I'll give you everything that is required. And that is the responsibility. Because once the Guru Maharaj takes one under the wing, and what is the criteria? He should be adhikari. He should be searching for the truth. He must want the realization. He must not want, how do I satisfy my desires in this world? How do I maintain my family? How do I make my child get married, or blah blah blah. So many different things. Them also the Guru Maharaj will help. But the outside Guru is just an expression of the inner Tattva, inner Guru Tattva. Inner Guru Tattva is the Atma Tattva or the Paramatma Tattva. From the Atma Tattva or the Guru Tattva point of view, everything is it only. From Guru Maharaj outside, if he is a realized master, from his point of view also, everything is the self alone. And when someone comes in the presence of such a person, when you come in the presence of light, which is common to all, darkness goes away, no? What is darkness? Questions, doubts, suspicions, shortcomings, phobias, unsolvable questions. So just as when we come in the presence of light, darkness goes away, when we come in the presence of the Guru Maharaj, and we must not be fixated on a form. The true Guru will teach you to learn from everything. Everything is your Guru, because the corruption is in our vision, that we are seeing the multiplicity where there is only unity. You are seeing multiplicity of waves, there is only unity of water. You are seeing multiplicity of ornaments where there is only one gold. Same way, we are seeing a varied world with all the names, forms, sounds, tastes, etc., etc., thoughts, convictions, past, future. But actually, it is one without a second. That vision has to be developed, and Guru Maharaj has that vision. Atma Tattva cannot but have that vision. That is its natural state. And therefore, when Krishna Bhagavan is speaking, when we are telling you, last week also I mentioned, when Krishna Bhagavan is speaking to Arjuna, it cannot be the physical Krishna Bhagavan, Shri Krishna. It is the Paramatma speaking through that instrument of the body called Krishna, which the world knows as Krishna. And so is the case of many Mahatmas who are born on this great land of Bharat. Take Gondavle Maharaj, take Tukaram, take excuse me. Take Tulsidas ji. You think Tulsidas ji created the Ramayana, Tulsi Ramayana, or did it express out of him? Did the Changdev Pasashti was concocted by thinking about this, that, and written to Changdev Maharaj, or it came out as a sudden spurt? Shankaracharya wrote Meenakshi Panchakam, thinking, contemplating, this word will go here or that word will go there. Or did he, when that Chandal came in front of him, at that very moment, the moment he recognized that it is Lord Shiva come to test, immediately the Meenakshi Pancharatnam just flowed out of him. No calculation, no deliberation, spontaneous spurt. Just like naturally. The sun is giving the sunlight. naturally the waves are being formed on the waves and oceans are formed on the imagined on the waters. That natural it is that when we come in the presence of such masters, question is not about the master, question is about our availability. How purified are we? How focused are we on that divine principle, that atmic principle? With that preparation we go in the presence of the master, the Guru Maharaj, just like here the Krishna Bhagwan is the Guru of, because we remember Shishyaste ham shadi mam tvam prapannam, he told no in the second chapter that I am your disciple and I am your devotee. So he has taken him to the Guru. Who is Guru? Not just because you have got Guru Garbadananda. No. Guru is he through whom spontaneously the words of wisdom are flowing. Who, because of his vision of oneness, because of his vision of oneness. And therefore, that Guru Maharaj acts as the philosopher's stone. The more we are in contact with, in presence of, we rub against, we remain in the company of such masters, we do the seva of such masters, unknowingly to you, you will come to recognize. It must happen naturally, as if there should be no struggle in it. Just as you don't say when you come close to the fire that now the cold is going away, oh yes, 20%, 30%, 40%, 100, now 99% it has gone, but little bit is still there. Do you say, or you just enjoy the fire? Exactly the same way Bhagavan is saying, I will take care of you. And if a student is surrendered, if the student is ready to do, see the difference between a student and a disciple and a devotee is, devotee makes the Lord change himself for his sake. Because of the big demands, you are not doing this to me, you are not doing this, I am going to be angry with you, I am going to be, I want you to come down as a playmate for me, I want you as my husband, I want you, fight with you. So God has to take that form and come down. And you see, all those devotees, so many bhaktas are there, so many stories are there of the devotees. The Lord has come. For Prahlad the Lord came as Narsimha Avatar. For Dhruva the Lord came. For Mirabai the Lord came and took her away. And so on for so many. For Ramakrishna, the Kali Mata used to come, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. And the list goes on. The Lord has to descend to take care of the devotee. But in case of disciple, there the Lord was changing himself. Here, in the case of disciple, the disciple changes, perfects himself. He is ready to change. There, in a devotee-Lord relationship, the Lord is compelled to change because of the devotion of the devotee, because of the love of the devotee, because of the calling of the devotee. But in case of disciple, the disciple changes. The disciple etches out all the shortcomings within himself. And when the disciple is ready for that, then the Guru Maharaj makes sure that no stone is unturned till he comes to know who he is essentially. He cannot make him know, but he will pour everything into him. And therefore the Lord here is, Bhagavan is saying, as you have the philosopher's stone as myself, why should I put you to the trouble of finding someone else to talk about it? If a person has the mirror in front of him, why should he ask others to tell him how he looks? Guru is our mirror. So how do we surrender to the Guru? How does the disciple surrender to the Guru? By recognizing the Guru within his heart as the Guru Tattva. How do you recognize yourself in front of a mirror? You have a reflection there and you recognize that reflection is yours. So that Guru Maharaj, that person, that Maharaj, teacher outside, not one particular, everything is teaching us. Are we seeing when we interact with anything, when we interact with the teacher, does our attention come back to within? Do we recognize the Guru Tattva within? For that you read Dattatreya when he was lying under the tree. There the story goes that he had the 24 Gurus. He learned from the snake, he learned from the pigeon, he learned from the Vaishya, he learned from the... so 24 Gurus doesn't mean that only 24. It means every moment, whatever he is experiencing, that becomes the Guru for him. It becomes an impetus to fall back into his essential nature. See? But that will only happen when we are ready to change. नहीं तो बच्चे की तरह रोते रहो and the Lord has to come to pick you up, to motivate you, to cajole you, to guide you. कब तक? How long we are going to hang on? How long we are going to keep demanding from him? If a person has the mirror in front of him, why should he ask others to tell him how he looks? Wherever a devotee looks with a purpose in view, now this is, mark this point. Wherever a devotee, here he is saying devotee because Bhagavan is, it's a Bhavartha Deepika. So wherever a devotee looks with a purpose in view, it becomes as he desires. See? So, you are walking down the street on one fine beautiful day and the breeze like today is blowing beautiful, and suddenly one girl is going on the other side of the road, hair blowing, and your eyes get stuck on her. Oh, that is wonderful. I wish she was my wife. हो गया काम. उसके बाद चक्कर काटने शुरू हो गए. This is how desire. ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः संगस्तेषु उपजायते. First, whenever you contemplate on anything more than once, you get attached to it. Whatever you get attached to, you have a desire for, whatever you have desire for, it may be satisfied, it may not be satisfied. And therefore, if it is satisfied, it turns into greed. If it is not satisfied, it turns, desire leads to anger. If it is satisfied, it leads to greed. Greed can never be satisfied. So again anger. Anger leads to delusion. Delusion leads to loss of memory. Loss of memory leads to lack of discrimination. And where a person is unable to see what is right and wrong, he is as good as walking dead. Good for nothing. And right and wrong is not नमक इतना डालूं के मिर्ची इतनी डालूं के चाट मसाला इतना डालूं, what is right and wrong नहीं. Right and wrong in life. So understand, these are the principles that we must sit with and contemplate. Whatever we contemplate upon, think about dhyayato vishayan punsa. Whenever we contemplate on any thing or person, more than one time, attachment is developed. What is attachment here? It will form an impression. See? Wherever a devotee looks with a purpose in view, it becomes as he desires. So I have become a plaything in your hands. See, Bhagavan is saying, what did I say just now before? The God changes himself for the devotee. So he is saying here that if so I have become a plaything in your hands. Bhagavan is saying, because of his availability, because of his crying, I don't want to fight, I can't kill my relatives, I cannot kill my brothers, I cannot kill my guru, I cannot kill my teachers, I cannot kill. When he is crying like this, that's why the Lord came. He said, okay, क्या इसको भी सबक सिखाना पड़ेगा. So Lord is changing for the sake of the devotee. Therefore his statement. So I have become a plaything in your hands. When the Lord was saying this in the flush of affection, he lost consciousness. As for Arjuna, he became immersed in bliss. So Bhagavan has come down not out of some sense of duty. He has come because of the love of his devotee. And why is Arjuna immersed? Because he is a disciple at the same time. The head and the heart are the two wings which we soar. The bird soars. So on one hand, Arjuna is the devotee, and on other hand, he is working on himself logically. He is listening attentively. He is discriminative. He is ready to. He is attentive, and he is correcting his where he is going wrong. He is trying to understand the whole thing. No, I don't know anything. You touch me and I have to fix it. Everything. He is not saying that. He is continuously, he is applying all the principles that Bhagavan Krishna is telling him. He is applying on himself there and then. And he is doing that with love for Lord Krishna. He is doing that with surrender to Lord Krishna. It cannot be a matter of fact. This relationship with disciple and guru and devotee, and in case of disciple and guru, sometimes it can become very factual. data is given by the teacher and the student grasps it, but the grasping power is directly proportional to the faith in the teacher, faith in the Guru Maharaj. So if our faith in Jnaneshwar Maharaj and whatever he is saying is falling short, then we will have to read again. And for a devotee's case, the devotee initially he begins with blind devotion. But as he comes closer and closer to the Lord, his mind becomes fixated on the Lord. Knowledge starts dawning because Lord is none, that Paramatma is none other than Sat Chit Anand Swarup. Chit is of the nature of knowledge. Knowledge has to dawn in the mind of the devotee. Merely Satchit Anand Satchidanand tu Rama Krishna tu na 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 na. So singing Satchidananda tu has got no meaning if you don't understand what Satchidanand means. And if our devotion is not bringing about the precipitation of knowledge in our in heart and mind, then our devotion is still blind. It is not, it is only at the body level. We haven't surrendered. So here both the Guru Krishna and the disciple or the devotee Arjuna, both are immersed in bliss. See the beauty. This I remember when we were in the ashram, last 6-7 months, when one Upanishad after the other, one Upanishad after Upanishad, and Panchadashi was going on, and the Anand, the last 5 chapters of Panchadashi were going on. And believe it or not, we were at so, just with ourselves. We just couldn't. The wish at that time was, let our whole life go like this. Listen to these nectarine words of the teacher, of the Upanishad, and we must sit there in the bliss of the being. Because every word, every sentence, every verse that was being spoken of was taking us back to our nature. Stambha. And Swamiji is there sitting, he is also, his voice would quiver out of the joy of the depth of the words that are coming out of him. And we are literally, the tears are rolling down like anything, not only mine, most of us. So he is in bliss, we are in bliss, what else is required? Is that happening to us in every interaction, in every contact, in every experience, in every lecture, in every satsang? See? When the Lord was saying this, in the flush of affection, he lost consciousness. It doesn't mean that he lost, he stopped talking because he got absorbed in himself, in the love of his devotee. That what a worthy devotee I have, what a worthy student I have. He fell back into his own nature. And on the other hand, Arjuna, he became immersed in bliss. Continuing now from 286th verse, Chandiniyacha padibharu होता सोमकांताचा डोंगरू विघरोनी सरोवरू हो पाहे जैसा तैसे सुख आणि अनुभूती या भावांची मोडुनी भिंती आतले अर्जुना कृती सुखची जेथ तेथ समर्थू म्हणवणी देवा अवकाशु जाहला आठवा मग बुडतयाच्या धावा जिभे केला अर्जुना येसणे धेडे प्रज्ञा पसरेसी पुढे आले भरते एवढे ते काढूनी पुढती देवो म्हणे हा गा पार्था तू आपण पे देख सर्वथा तव श्वासून ये रे माथा तुकियेला. He says that even if there is a mountain of moonstones, it oozes to form a lake in bright moonshine. In the same way, Arjuna had become bliss incarnate by the removal of the screen between the bliss and the realization. But the Lord, being strong, regained his senses and lifted up Arjuna from the ocean of bliss. The ocean of bliss had such a high tidal flow that Arjuna, the great warrior, with his high talent, was about to be drowned in it. It's like Vivekananda, you know, Swami Vivekananda. You all have heard of his name. You probably read his biography. When he asked, what is Samadhi? Is it possible? Ramakrishna Paramhans touched his head for 3 days. Our Swami Vivekananda was at one with himself. He was ready to leave his body. And before he could do it, Ramakrishna Paramhans brought him out. He says, it's not time yet. You got a job to do. Now it's my time to go and your job to start. And see, in those 16 years, 14 years, how much voluminous work Swami Vivekananda did. And 6 days before he took Samadhi, but when this happened, he said, no, I was enjoying the bliss, I was ready to, there's nothing, world, everything is Brahman, this, that. He said, no, you have to do your job. And when the time is right, it will come back to you. And 6 days before he breathed his last or took his Samadhi, again, automatically, by the grace, all that state which he had gained by the grace of his Guru Maharaj Sri Ramakrishna Paramhans, that same state came about, and 6 days later, same thing is happening here. Arjuna was about to merge into the bliss which has no beginning and no end. But Krishna Bhagavan, being who he is, brings him out. No, you got a job to do. You can't run away from the family just like that. You have to fight your family. Your guru, your teacher, your brothers, you have to fight. All that he has already explained. He didn't say that you have to fight. He left the decision to him. We'll see that at the end of this chapter. But he brought him out because the purpose for which Arjuna was born has not got fulfilled yet. And therefore, the ocean of bliss had such a high tidal flow that Arjuna, the great warrior with his high talent, why high talent? He was focused. Arjuna was the most focused fellow, most capable, ideal person in that society at that time. Balanced, loving, straightforward. A good, great disciple. Even for Guru Dronacharya, he was a great disciple. With his high talent, was about to be drowned in it. So, do we have the focus and the capability like Arjuna? Are we focused? Are we straightforward? Are we balanced? Are we righteous? Amanitvam adambitvam. Remember how the 13th chapter began? The qualities that we need to develop. 30 qualities were told there. 30, 31. Well, we have to, if it is not clicking, it is only because we are not purified. Was about to be drowned in it. The Lord checked the flow and said, "O Partha, do not lose sight of yourself and come to your senses." Brought him back to the relative reality. He was going to merge into the absolute. He stopped. Because Krishna went back to the absolute. When it was written here, Jnaneshwar Maharaj is saying, Krishna lost his consciousness, meaning consciousness of his body, and he merged into the consciousness that he is. And if he is the mirror for Arjuna, Arjuna is also losing consciousness and merging into the bliss. But Arjuna, Krishna Bhagavan, being Krishna Bhagavan, he comes out of it because he, out of his own free will, he has incarnated. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That's why he has come. So he comes down. Arjuna is not able to control himself. He is getting sucked. When sleep catches you from within and you don't want to think about anything. You just go into the lap of the sleep. So this is not sleep. This is bliss. This is the absolute. It's like when you wake up from the dream, you are no more you will be able to go back to the dream. Can you? No. If Arjuna had woken up, then who will fight the war? A lesson for mankind had to be given through Arjuna. If that main character only merges into the absolute, then the job is half done. So Krishna Bhagavan brings him back to his senses. At this, Arjuna heaved a sigh and nodded his head. He came back. To 91st. Mane जानसी दातारा मी तुझशी व्यक्ती शेजारा उबगला आजी एकाहारा ये वो पाहे तया ही हा ऐसा लोभे देतसा जरी लालसा तरी काजी घाली तसा आड आड जीवा तेथ श्री कृष्ण म्हणती निके अद्यापि नाही मा ठाऊके वेडया चंद्रा आणि चंद्रिके न मिळणे आहे आणि हाही बोलो निभावो तुझ दऊ आम्ही भिवो जे रुसता बांधे थांबो ते प्रेम गाहे एथ एकमेकांची खुणे विसंवादू तमची जिणे म्हणूनी असो हे बोलणे ये विषयीचे. Jnaneshwar Maharaj says, he said, O Lord, Arjuna. Arjuna say, Arjuna says, Jnaneshwar Maharaj is giving the commentary. Arjuna says, O Lord, although I am so close to you, yet I am separate from you. Huh? I am so close to you, yet I am so separate to you. What was happening? He was merging into the essence of Krishna. That is the Absolute. That is the Paramatman. That is the Brahman. That is the one without a second. That is the Tattva. Although I am so close to you, yet I am separate from you. Sometimes it happens not to us. We are on the threshold of sleep, but we are not able to sleep. The thoughts keep coming and disturbing, but it's pulling from inside. Yet we are not able to sleep. Doesn't it happen? Sometimes you want to remember someone's name or someone's phone number. You know it is just at the tip of your tongue, but it is not coming. It's just the, I just talked about it. I like that. These are very gross examples. Our focus, Arjuna's ideal now in Bhagavad Gita, the ideal in front of Arjuna is Sri Krishna. It is not anyone else but Sri Krishna. By this chapter, he has recognized the greatness of Krishna. After the Vishwarup Darshan, etc., now he has no doubt left. Now from chapter 13 onwards, it is only question. That's the Jnana part. And in the Jnana part, Jnana is not about Krishna. The Jnana is about how do I fix myself. Now I know who you are, I know what the Absolute is, then why am I not merging into it? Now when he is merging into it, Krishna Bhagavan pulls him out. See? Yet I am separate from you. I get tired of this and wish to attain unison with you. Tulsidas ji Maharaj swam across the Ganga in spate, taking support of a carcass because he wanted to be in union with his wife. When we seek union with anything in this world, what is world? Not self. At this moment, we'll take it that way. The union can never be complete. It can never be satisfying. It can never be complete absorption. You get absorbed in food, after 4 hours again the hunger comes. You buy one sari, the next sari also looks inviting. And it goes on, it goes on. In this world, in this prapancha, in this samsara, there is nothing that can satisfy one absolutely. Why? Because everything is finite and changing. How can finite and changing give you infinite experience? It's not possible. And here Arjuna has had the experience of the Lord in the Vishwarup Darshan. Now the merging that is, and that time he became afraid of it. That's why he said, please come back to your Chaturbhuj form in the 11th chapter. Now the merging that was taking place was not an objective merging. You understand? It's not like I am merging into the food or food is merging into me. It is not like this. It's not like a man is embracing a woman or a child. It's not that type of merging. It's not merging like one merges into sleep only to wake up again. It is not that type of merging. This merging has a different characteristics altogether. He is merging into the essence, and that essence is not without. It's not outside. It is all that there is. Essence is one without a second. I get tired of this and wish to attain unison with you. Tired of what? Tired of coming back to body identification. Tired of again accepting the body, and on account of the body, then relationships are there, then the world is there, then the duty is there, then all that is required to be done is there. And just now he was tasting the almost coming to the union with his of his essence, meaning the ego was dissolving completely, but before it could dissolve completely, Krishna pulled him out. Same thing Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did to Vivekananda. Since you are so affectionately fulfilling my desires, then why do you place me in predicament by reminding me of my separate state? This is Arjuna's cry. Having tasted the bliss, coming to the threshold of the bliss, he was about to merge. He is telling Lord Krishna that from chapter 1 till now, you have answered, told whatever I have asked, you have helped me understand, you have laid bare the knowledge, you have given me the Vishwarup Darshan, you have helped me make the mind become focused. He only did it because of his devotion, because of his readiness, because of his ability. But if he says that I have done it, like many seekers say, I have done it, I am focused. No, it is by the grace of the Guru or by the grace of the Lord that we have become focused, that we are coming to Bhagavad Gita, that we are listening to satsang, that we are functioning in our life, that we are breathing, that we are seeing, that we are doing our duties. It's all by the grace of Lord, not by our own efforts. This shift has to come. And this shift is clear in the words of Arjuna and in the words of Jnaneshwar Maharaj. So he says that since you are so affectionately fulfilling my desires, then why do you place me in such a predicament? Why do you keep me separate from you? Why don't you allow me to merge in you? Then everything is over. Then there is no world. Once you have woken up from the dream, there is no dream after that. There is no brother, there is no wife, there is no war, there is no gurus, there is no grandfathers to fight against. Then there will be no destruction because you have woken up. All the fears and aspirations of the dream, successes of the dream, all are become null and void once you wake up. He says, why did you bring me back? Why don't you allow me to merge? Then the drama is over. Why do you keep me separate from you? Why do you keep me separate from you? This type of a statement can only come from a devotee, never from a disciple. Devotee is ready to merge, he is ready to dissolve. Don't forget, we need both jnana and bhakti. Then the Lord said, "Oh, you silly fellow, you have not yet come to know properly what I have told you." So, Bhagwan भी पक्का है. He says, "You silly fellow, you have not come to know, you have not yet come to know properly what I have told you. Are the moon and its splendor ever separate from each other? The moon and the coolness of the moon, or the beauty of the moon, is it separate? Is the heat and light separate from the sun?" That example is not here. Maybe it is there. I don't know. Where are we? Are the moon and its splendor ever separate from each other? I am afraid to tell you what is in my mind. If one becomes displeased with one's beloved, their bonds of love become stronger. This is love. If, see, catch, what is the hidden meaning there? I am afraid to tell you what is in my mind. Bhagavan is telling Arjuna. What is that? If one becomes displeased with one's beloved, those who are nears and dears, those who are your friends, contemporaries, colleagues, etc., 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 meaning if you become displeased, dislike, hate anyone or anything in your life, what does Bhagavan say? The bond of love becomes stronger. What is what? How come bond of love becomes stronger? Whatever you hate remains in your mind. Whoever you hate remains in your mind and heart. Can't forget them. How alert we become when it comes to dislike, hate, displeasure. We become very alert as compared to when we are on the spiritual path. If we are when we are in love. If we are truly in love, that is also only for getting something in return. But in general understanding, Bhagavan is, or Jnaneshwar Maharaj is putting words in the mouth of Lord Krishna that if one becomes displeased with one's beloved, their bonds of love become stronger. This is love. So long as this love between us remains intact, our separateness is bound to remain. If love for another is out of attachment, if you are thinking of another person, let's see, I'll see in which angle it is going. So long as this love between us remains intact, our separateness is bound to remain. But let us not discuss it further. He cuts the topic. Yesterday's topic in Kenopanishad, there also when the student says, "I know it very well," the teacher says, "Acha, you know it very well," which means you don't know. You know very little. And what did he say? The only thing, if you know anything, if you say, "I know it very well," it is arrogance. In that case, that It is an objective pursuit. Because the knower is there and the known is there. I know it very well. So you have seen the infinite as the object of knowledge. And he says that's okay, nothing wrong, but with that statement, the maximum you can go to is Ishvara, not the absolute, not the Brahman, only to Ishvara. We can have a relationship with Ishvara. You understand? Ishvara, when we contemplate on Ishvara as Shiva or Ishvara as Narayana or Ishvara as whatever your faith is, then that Lord takes the form and comes to help you. Simple. Because Ishvara is anything. If someone called me the other day, Swamiji, it's raining and I'm stuck on the Springwell Road, can you please come and help? Oh, गाड़ी उठाओ जल्दी है. But if that person had not called, would I go? I don't even know that that person is there on the Springwell Road, stuck in the rain. Similarly, Ishvara is everything. He is the Nimitta and Upadan Karan. Out of him everything has come about. He is pervading. He is all that there is. In him everything is being imagined. So just like when there is a itch in your leg, automatically your attention goes to the leg. Why? There is some disturbance in your skin on the right knee. So fingers go and give a bit of scratching and they become okay. At other times, do you keep thinking, acha, maybe there is going to be a scratch here, so let me scratch before it asks me to scratch. Does it ever happen? Only when the demand from those particular cells come, then you go. Only when the demand for food comes from inside, then we eat. I hope. Same way, when the demand comes from the devotee, so this body also I am also me only. So the body is calling and I am only responding. But the cell in my knee doesn't know that it is one with me. The hunger in me doesn't know Brahma Arpanam Brahma Havi Brahmagno Brahmanahutam. It doesn't know that. The jiva, the devotee, he doesn't know. So he keeps calling out. He is none other than the Ishvara only. He is none other than the Brahman also. The wave is none other than the ocean and the wave is none other than the waters. Waters being the absolute, ocean being the Ishvara. And wave being the individual. So when he calls out, the Ishvara comes in whichever way he deems it fit to help the devotee. That is love. So, that is, and Ishvara is of the nature of love. Devotee is cultivating that love with faith, thinking only about his beloved Lord. But he is seeing the Lord as separate to him. And as long as he sees the Lord as separate to him, as Arjuna is saying, I was going to merge into you, his vision is still having the duality in it. See? So he says that where are we? So long as this love between us remains intact, our separateness is bound to remain. But let us not discuss it further. This is the nature. Everything is one and yet it is many. All is water yet expressing as many waves. Waves are separate, but actually it is one water. There is a seeming difference between ocean and wave. Ocean is totality, wave is individuality, individual wave. Waves are many, ocean is one. But isn't it all one water? So this love is the nature of the Lord. He cannot have any hatred towards any wave. He cannot have dislike towards any wave. Even that gentle lapping wave is nothing but the ocean. And in that ocean, if there is a tsunami coming which is destructive, which is going to eat up all other waves, is also not hated by the ocean, disliked by the ocean, because everything is eternal. But let us not discuss it further. Now, why doesn't he discuss? Let's see, 290, 296th. Where are we? No, here, 296. मग कैशी कैशी ते आता बोलत होतो पंडुसुता सर्व कर्मा भिन्नता आत्मे निसी तव अर्जुन म्हणे देवे माझी ये मनीचेची स्वभावे प्रस्ताविले बरवे प्रमेय तेजी जे सकळ कर्माचे बीज कारण पंचक तुझ सांगेन ऐसी पैज घेतली का आणि आत्मया येथ काही सर्वथा लागू नाही हे पुढारलासी ते देई लहाणे माझे यया बोला विश्वेशे म्हणितले तोषे बहुवसे इये विषयी धरणे बैसे ऐसे के जोडे. He says, Arjuna, we were just now talking of actions being distinct from the self. What was the topic going on? About karma. We were just now talking of actions being distinct from the self. From the Atmic point of view, let's take example. From the water's point of view, is there any activity possible or action possible? Is there any cause and effect possible from water's point of view? Oh, now I'll become the cause, the ocean, and my effect will be the wave. Will the water ever say that? From water's point of view, is there any recognition of ocean and wave as entities? No. Water's vision is that of homogeneity. I alone am. Aham eva. Ekameva. Ekameva. Similarly, from self point of view, is there any activity possible? I am asking. From self point of view, is any activity possible?
No.
Why?
Because activity is in Prakriti.
Good. Be very clear about this. That activity is only at the Prakriti level. In Atma, there is no activity possible. And where is Prakriti? Answer required. Where is Prakriti?
In the mind.
Is mind not Prakriti also?
It is.
Then where is Prakriti?
It's a phenomena in the self.
How can there be anything in the self? Self is all that there is. But good, close. I'm just playing with words here. Yes. So what is Prakriti? Prakriti is that which is existing in its own absence. From Vedantic point of view, self alone is. Prakriti is only a projection. It's only an imagination. Just as wave and ocean is only an imagination on the water. There is nothing called ocean. So you touch, feel, taste water only. There is nothing called wave. You touch, feel, taste only water. So what is that form which you are seeing? It's a temporary, it's a phenomena. Even after knowing that the sky is not blue, you will continue to see a blue sky. It's a phenomena. You see? After knowing that the mirage waters cannot quench your thirst, you will continue to see the mirage waters. It will, just because you know it is mirage waters, means they will not vanish. They will continue to be seen by the person. Clear? So is the nature of Prakriti. That which is and that which is not, both at the same time. It seems to be there but actually is not there. We were just now talking of actions being distinct from the self. How beautifully Krishna brought him back to the topic. Both were getting lost. Krishna Bhagavan caught himself and got Arjuna also back on track. Just like in yesterday's class, the student thought, now I know after the first chapter, right? The teacher is checking in. How much he has understood. Acha, if you have understood very well, come back. You need to go through a little bit more of training. A little bit more of understanding has to take place. Your approach has to be refined. Not understanding has to take place, approach has to be refined. So that you come to a conclusionless conclusion in yesterday's case. Self is not a conclusion. Self is not a conclusion. It is not the end game. It is not a result. So, here when the Krishna Bhagavan says that actions being distinct from the self, activity or actions are completely separate. They cannot touch the self. Can the wave make an impact on the waters? Can a tsunami make an impact on the waters? No. It is water playing with water. It is before, during and after it is water only. So self cannot be affected by any activity. Now apply it on yourself. Are you affected by your actions? Are you affected by your thoughts? Are you affected by your speech? If you are, then you have not accepted yourself as the self which is separate from the Prakriti. You are identified with the Prakriti called the body, therefore you are affected. Simple conclusion. Now put it into practice. your default settings are so deeply embedded, it requires a deep conviction. A deep conviction is what? I've given this example before. A deep conviction is when in a marriage the Jayamala is put around the neck of a girl, and the man, from that moment they have deep conviction that I am husband of this girl, and I am the wife of this man. Deep conviction, and all your actions from then on are governed by that conviction, isn't it? Because your consecutive thought, words and deeds will be result of your convictions. Convictions is what is making you who you are. It is making your character. It is everything about you is about your convictions. Have you become? So what did you do there? Only one mala was put around your neck with two katoris called Mangal Sutra. Because of that piece of gold and black thread, suddenly you change your whole behavior. You change your whole identity. What changed? Something deep went in that moment in that ritual, isn't it? So having performed a ritual on ourselves where we have become completely convinced that we are the Atma, which is separate from the Prakriti, that all activity is happening at the Prakriti level, I am untouched by it. See? Have you become convinced? Anyway, we'll leave that, contemplate on that. That is the point made here by Krishna Bhagavan, that actions being distinct from the self. On this Arjuna said, O Lord, you have read my mind correctly and broached the topic. You had promised to tell me the 5 causes responsible for action. The relationship between the self and action is my favorite topic. So please explain it to me. How can Arjuna realize without getting complete knowledge? This question was unanswered. That he want to know what are the 5 causes which are propelling the action to come about. So if he had merged into the bliss, problem. So please explain it to me. Hearing his words, Lord Shri Krishna said with great pleasure, where else can I find a hearer who is so persistent in asking questions? See, no teacher will say don't ask questions, but are we ready to accept the answer subjectively? Everything that has been told by Krishna Bhagavan to Arjuna has been applied subjectively by Arjuna, and all his questions, if you see, he has never gone back to chapter 1. I see many people that as we are moving ahead, we are studying Kenopanishad, we are studying Amrita Anubhav, but are our questions about what has already happened? What is devotion? What is karma yoga? What is karma sannyas yoga? Are there still any doubts there? That means we were not listening. Or if we listened, we didn't reflect upon it. We didn't contemplate on it. We didn't apply it in our life. to make it our own conclusion. It was only a feel good moment. Ah, that satsang was fantastic, Swamiji. I don't need. Jnaneshwar Maharaj doesn't need my validity or your validity that he has said well, he has written well. We don't need that. He doesn't need it. We need to apply it. So, oh, wonderful, fantastic, aha, oohoo. But we are missing the same main point, which is to apply it subjectively. If we are applying subjectively, then as Gita is flowing, we are also flowing. Gita started with a doubt. Gita started with the identity crisis of Arjuna, and the Gita will conclude with the identity crisis gone. So, as some of you have been there from the beginning till now, so have we grown with Bhagavad Gita? Or are we still having doubts about our identity from as we had 5 years ago? Or has there some maturity come? Some clarity? See? So when one is applying the tenets on themselves as they are listening, then the quality of questions will be of a different caliber. They won't be the same rut. Same, you have asked that question to 100 people, or you have asked that question without, just as you imagine that is a good question and you ask. But if that question is not, have you thought through it? If you are applying it, then you are with the thought, you are with the scheme that is being unfolded, you are with the context in which it is being told. You are totally aware of the whole situation in which these verses are being told. Then the question that will come out will be also accordingly, if we are alert. If we are not alert, if we have an itch to ask questions, then we are not alert. Because that question has not come from the depths of your being. It has not come out of your reflection. You know, like today's kids, when I used to take children's classes, nowadays I don't, but when I used to take, if I'll ask, hey, you know who is Narayana? And even the schools, in schools also I have been here, whenever I ask questions or I see all the kids straight with great inspiration, they put the hands up. And then you select one, acha, tell me, oh, I forgot. Then you ask the second one, oh, it was just there, but it is not there. That also goes away. Third one, they start crying. So that is a reaction. That is not thought out. Our questions are as a reaction. Something mind throws up from inside and we ask the question. But Arjuna is not like that. He is with the theme, he is with the thought as it is unfolding. And his questions are pertinent to the context. And therefore the Guru Maharaj here, Krishna Bhagavan, he says, where can I find a hearer who is so persistent in asking pertinent questions, not questions because he wants to ask, not because of that. through self-analysis he is asking. Continuing, we'll just read this last one, 301. तर्हि अर्जुना निरूपिजेल ते कीर भाषे आंतुला परिमेचु ये होई जेल ऋणिया तुझ तव अर्जुन म्हणे देवो काही विसरले मागील भावो इये गोंठी सतिकी राखत आहो मी तू पणजी हेथ श्री कृष्ण म्हणती हो का आता अवधानाचा पसरुनिका करुनिया ऐका पुढारलो ते तरी सत्यची गादनुर्धरा सर्व कर्माचा उभारा होतसे बहिरवाहिरा करणी पाचे आणि पाच कारण दळवाडे जिही कर्मा कारू मांडे हे ते हेतुस्तव घडे पाच आथी. He says, I shall therefore tell you what I had intended, but this would mean that I shall place you under an additional debt of affection. Bhagwan is also saying with so much love, he wants to pour everything into Arjuna because he is so keen, he is so willing, he is so available. And that availability is not emotional. There may be bhav in it, but he is discriminative, he is alert, he is vigilant, he is subjective. ऐसे ये सब ड्रामा नहीं है. Then Arjuna replied, O Lord, have you completely forgotten what you said before? You said that in order to preserve this affection, you are maintaining the distinction between you and me. Now the student is telling the teacher. Now the teacher was becoming very affectionate and mushy. Oh, what a great disciple. I feel proud to have a student like you. My name will be great because of you. Blah 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 blah. And Arjuna is reminding, oh teacher, maintain the distance. Don't don't merge into that love, because you have to tell me the 5 reasons. So he says, then Arjuna replied, O Lord, have you completely forgotten what you said before? You said that in order to preserve this affection, you are maintaining the distinction between you and me. This is the same language how Paramashiva, this is Kashmiri Shaivism, the Ishvara Advayavad. The phenomena of Shiva Shakti goes on incessantly. And when the phenomena is going on incessantly, the Paramashiva has not become corrupted because of the phenomena. The phenomena of ocean and wave will go on incessantly, forever and ever and ever. But because of the expression of the phenomena of ocean and wave, water has not become corrupted by the ocean or the wave. Can we take the position? This is not the topic here, but I am telling. Because of the phenomena of aham and idam, where it is taking place? In the mind. Aham is I, idam is that, and the instrument of knowledge. Because this phenomena, mind is going on, you didn't create the mind, mind was there. Have we become corrupted in our essence? What is corruption? Have we become identified with the phenomena? This is discrimination. Vivek Chudamani told, no, what? Vivek, Vairagya, Shatka Sampatti and Mumukshutva. So Vivek, what is Vivek? Discrimination between the changeless Nitya Vastu and changing the Anitya Vastu. The infinite and the finite. Find out in you what is unchanging. Body has changed from childhood till today. The thoughts are changing. The breath is changing. The hunger is changing. The body is changing. The hair are changing. Before they were black, now it is white. Everything around you is changing. But do you feel you have changed? Nobody feels they have changed. Whenever they talk about change, it is about something that has changed. Body has changed, years have changed, time has changed, day has changed. Parents have changed, children have changed. And when we come to ourselves, the body has changed. But it is always, the change is always with reference to something. Nobody says. And when you say that I have changed, unintelligently though, that I have changed is also with reference to something, because I have changed. Why? How come you have changed? Oh, before I was thin, now I am fat. So body has changed, not you. Because you identified with the body, so unintelligent. You understand? So just as ocean has not changed, water has not changed, gold has not changed in spite of supporting the phenomena of change. Ornaments come and go, waves come and go. Similarly, actions come and go, body comes and goes, thoughts come and go. But do I come and go? So when you say death and birth, death and birth of what? Who has come and who is going? Who is born and who is dying? You or the body? So what you celebrate as birth, is it you are celebrating your birth or the birth of the body? Are you growing or the body is growing? Are you diseased or the body is diseased? Therefore, this statement is told that you are maintaining the distinction between you and me. This is if it is taken as that if our attention is on the one in spite of the manyness, then it becomes a leela. But when we become identified with the changing, then it becomes samsara. You understand? That only that slight shift in attention. If you give value to the changing, it becomes samsara. If you are unaffected by the changing, it is leela. Well, in between, if you remain unaffected, it is witnessing. But if your attention is on the one and you are the one, then you are not against the phenomena taking place, then it becomes a leela. Continuing, where are we? Then Lord Krishna said, "Be it so." Now hear attentively what I am going to say. O Arjuna, it is true that all actions originate from 5 causes without the intervention of knowledge of the self. Very, very important point. What is that? It is true that all actions originate from 5 causes. We'll tell you what the 5 causes are in the next verse. He is going to tell us in the next verse. All actions originate from the 5 causes without the intervention of knowledge of the self. So the Atma has got nothing to do with the activity that is taking place at the Prakriti level. Prakriti in our case as an individual is body, breath, mind, intellect. Hmm? So Atma has got nothing to do. No, it has got nothing to do. What about desires? No, desires are in the mind. Oh, oh, but I am having desires. That thought is also in the mind. Did you know that thought came that all the desires are in the mind? Yes, you just said it. I remember. That is all this dialogue is going on in the mind alone. So no activity is prompted by the Atman, by the Atmic principle, by the conscious principle. The Chetana, just as, I'll give you an example. Just as sun does not prompt any activity when it rises on the earth. Can you say, because of the sun I am active now? Because of the sun I woke up? Hey, those who are doing night shift, they sleep during the day. You see? So when do they wake up? When the night begins. But we have superimposed that because of with the sunrise we must rise. But ask the sun, is he the prompter of activity? Is he the prompter of waking and dream, waking a day and night? Is he the prompter of sunrise and sunset? Is he the prompter of all active, the birds chirping in the Brahma Muhurt time? Sun will say, I don't know what you are talking about. I don't know anything of this. And yet, without him, all this activity cannot take place, isn't it? But has he said, now, Nagesh, Nagaraj, get up, it's time. How long I have been standing here, already risen on the horizon, and you're still sleeping in the bed. Does he come and tell you? Exactly the same way, the Atma, that is our true nature, doesn't tell the intellect to think, doesn't tell the mind to feel, doesn't tell the breath to breathe, go in and come out, doesn't tell the senses that you have to see, you have to hear, you have to touch, you have to feel, doesn't tell the body you have to, legs you have to walk, hands you have to hold, mouth you have to speak. He doesn't say anything. Maunam vyakhyat prakatita parabrahma. He is silent. Why he is silent? Because there is nothing other than the Atma for him to talk about. He is all that there is. From water's point of view, there is nothing but water everywhere. Purnamada Purnamidam. When there is no duality, how can he talk about it? Ocean can talk to wave. Wave can talk to ocean. But water cannot talk to ocean or wave. Yet, without water, ocean and wave cannot exist. 9th chapter, 4th and 5th verse. Read them. If you understand these two verses, everything, the whole knot is open. Time हो गया यार. Quickly I'll read up to this. These 5 causes combine to give shape to action. The same causes also provide the reason for the action. So the cause and the effect is within the Prakriti. Nothing to do with the Atma. We'll talk more about this in our next episode. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. बोलो कृष्ण कन्हैया लाल की जय. Yes, sit quietly for a few seconds.